you guys decided to adopt us a year ago. So we're like your adopted child in Homestead. I'm very loud. I'm not angry. I'm having a bad week. I'm just Cuban. So I understand that, some cultural things. And also, I was looking at this message, and I was so encouraged that on the first 2 weeks that you guys are going through a hard transition, we could be here the first 2 weeks just to say, hey, we're here with you. So that's a blessing to us. And God has worked it out that way. And also, look, I was looking at this text, and I was just like, I don't know what to cut out. I felt like there's everything here needs to be said. So I don't normally preach more than 40 minutes. And anyone want to question me that, you can go on the website and you can look. But if I go a little long today, I'm sorry. Okay? So what I would like to do this Sunday is just to give the church some stability in the midst of things changing. And then next Sunday, just give us some perspective on where God calls us to after we kind of stabilize ourselves in things. And so I remember when I was in LA, I went to a church. I've been hearing the preacher preach for a while. And as soon as me and my wife show up, the church says, this guy who's been here for 10 years is leaving. And so we got to come into the middle of that. And, you know, God's people, like they should, it was hard for them. And one of the things that an elder said one time, he said, listen, I want you to understand this is Jesus' pulpit. It's not Jack Hughes' pulpit. Basically, this is what happens in Revelation. Revelation, when the devil's come from the cross, the devil gets way more active. That's what Revelation says. There's a lot of instability and change, and some pastors of churches getting killed. And what John does is not say this is Jesus' pulpit, but he says this is Jesus' throne over all. So you cannot look at things on the ground. Things are not as they seem. We must see things from above down, and Jesus is on the throne. And so, as things on the ground look very unstable, this is what John does. I want you to know who you are in. I want you to know where he is. I want you to know how he is there. I want you to know who he is. And I want you to know what he did. I want you to know who you are in, where he is, how he's there, who he is, and what he did. So here's the first point. Who you are in the midst of unstabilizing things, who you are in, not where you are, is the most important. Look at verse 9. I, John, your brother and partner in the tribulation, kingdom, and endurance that are in Jesus, was on island of Patmos because of God's word and the testimony about Jesus. I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and I heard a loud voice behind me like a trumpet. So John is saying, I'm in the tribulation now. Not some 7-year period. He's like, I'm in the tribulation now. And he's on Patmos. Are you familiar with Patmos, you Bible nerds? Patmos is an island where they would exile prisoners. So it's not like a jail with guards. It would just send all the worst criminals on an island to basically live alone. So basically, Patmos is hell on earth. I got to go to Patmos, and on top of there being a bunch of exiled criminals, there's the most venomous snakes on the island that can kill you. So John is like, I am in hell on earth, but actually, he said in verse 9, I am in Jesus. So me being identified with Christ is bigger than what's going on this island. Second thing he says, I'm in the Lord's Day. Now the Lord's Day is the 8th day, which is representative of Jesus earning and acquiring eternal heavenly Sabbath rest. So he's saying, in this restless place, I am in the eternal Sabbath rest of Jesus. I'm not in this place. And then he says, I'm in the Spirit, which means on the ground with this carnality and chaos. I'm not really there ultimately. intimately in the Spirit of God. Now, a baby in a womb is a good picture of this. A baby can be in a thunderstorm or no thunderstorm. It can be in a place where there's a fight and there's no fight. It can be in traffic, or it can be in the garage with no traffic. It can be on a baby. He can be in a room on a hot day or a cold day. But at the end of the day, because the baby's in somebody else, that's the most important thing about that child. And you can think like this. You know what? On the ground, my marriage is chaotic. My body's chaotic. On the ground, I see my relationships are chaotic. My work life is so perverse and corrupt and confusing. Like, my relationships are chaotic. I don't know the past. I don't know the future. On the ground, everything looks chaotic. But God's like, listen, who you are in, not what you see, is most important. Hallelujah. You are in Jesus, and that defines your ground experience. You are in the eternal Sabbath rest day of the gospel. You know, like the Christians, you know that movie Groundhog Day? He was stuck in one day over and over and over. Beloved, that's the church. Yes. We are stuck in the Lord's 8th day, where we just get stuck in the amen of that rest that He earned. And we can never undo that day, and we relive it over and over and over again. And that 8th day, that Jesus that you're in, defines everything about you more than what you see on the ground. You understand who you are in. I love what Colossians says. It says your life is hidden in Christ. And one day you'll understand what that means comprehensively, but for now you just have to hear about it by faith. So, church, think more about who you are in and less about where you are. Second thing, think secondly, about where He is, not what you think. Where Jesus is, not what you think. I turned and I saw His voice, it was He spoke to me. Then I saw 7 gold lampstands. That represents the church. And amongst the lampstands was one like the Son of Man. So Jesus, now He's not with us physically, but He's with us in the Spirit. The Spirit is the one who is another advocate like Him. So He's here, not physically, but He's here in the Spirit of God through the Word of God. That's how He's here. So listen, Jesus is not above or around. He is amongst us now. And now here's a picture I think is helpful. My kids are scared of dogs. And I don't mean big dogs, they're scared of like tiny dogs. Like there's a family here, they have this little, kick-me dogs. You guys laugh good, it's not like these crazy dog people are like. And my kids are horrified of those dogs. And I tell them, listen, I'm here, okay? That's what's most important about this situation. And I will punt the kick-me dog to the other side of the room if they attack you. What's most important is not how you feel about the snarling animals, but that I am here, not around. Jesus is not saying, look, when you call me church, I will eventually get there. He's saying, I'm already here. I am already here. Therefore, even though the devil is snarling like a roaring lion, even though wolves have fangs, Jesus is there and He will punt them. Actually, He did punt them 2,000 years ago on the cross. Yeah. The devil snarls, but he has no fangs no more. He was defanged by the gospel. And so what's most important, even though things on the ground can be awful and scary and doubtful and confusing and confounding, is that Jesus is here. And it's not just the commands of Christ, the idea of Christ, the teachings of Christ, and the example of Christ, but Christ Himself is here. Amen. So you all right? You all right? Consider who is here. Not what you think first. But here's a third thing that I see here. I'm actually doing good on time. We'll see where that goes. Consider how He is there, beloved, not how you are there. Consider first how He's there, not how you are there. Look what happens. After you see a picture of Jesus, what does it say? I saw the one who spoke to me, and I saw one among the lampstands who was like the Son of Man, dressed in a long robe with a gold sash wrapped around his chest. So basically, all these pictures of Jesus are just physical or metaphorical pictures of something about his character. Now, when you think about something, how is Jesus there? This is the first thing when you think about. He is there as an ultimate priority. What do you see first in this vision? What's the first thing we see? The lampstands. Consider this. We see the lampstands before we see Jesus. That is Jesus' way of saying, you are my ultimate first priority. Jesus is not like the boss that has you on an agenda of many things. Jesus has one thing on his agenda, and it's you.
Hallelujah.
And it's not, I'll get there. I only have one thing. And I don't know about, and when I say God spoke to me, I don't mean God spoke to me in some kind of audible form. But I'm saying it's the sense of what God says to you as you read his word and he impresses upon you in moments. I have a lot of moments where I'm worried a lot about the church, and I'm up and down about the church. And I get this sense, God's saying, I'm more worried about my church than you. Go to sleep. And I think we have this capacity as Christians. The more I worry, the more I'm concerned, the more something will happen. But Jesus is saying that I am so utterly concerned that you should rest in my profound, deep priority of concern, not how concerned you are. I'm more concerned about my church than you.
Yeah, right.
And rest in that. But he's just not there amongst us as a priority. He's also there graciously with us. He says, I saw one like the Son of Man. So the first Son of Man was Adam. The last Son of Man is this one. Adam was the first prophet, priest, and king, and obviously it didn't work out so well. Jesus is the last prophet, priest, and king. So now we get a picture of the Son of Man who is wearing a priestly outfit. So you see Jesus in heaven. He's saying, I want you to see that I am a priest, which means that priestly act that I did 2,000 years ago, I'm still on that priestly tip, priestly vibe, priestly attitude. It's like, why is all this coral all over the place? Because the presence of an ocean over Florida has left Florida forever, perpetually enslaved by coral everywhere. Because Jesus was a priest 2,000 years ago, he now perpetually operates from that priestly demeanor. Now think about this. To be a priest means that he lives in a full-time office that is interceding for you, that is in your place and is for you. Jesus has an eternal posture of I'm for you. And I'm not just for you, but I'm for you not because of me. Because my priestly robes were dipped in your sin and blood drenched by the wrath of God. I am not only for you, but I'm for you not because of you. And this is so important because Jesus is going to reveal himself as an attire that points to an example or a teacher or a lawgiver, and he's all those things. But he says, I want you to see my outfit to be uniquely and distinctly the outfit of a priest. I am for you. I have a posture of for you all the time.
Hallelujah.
I don't know about you. Some families, you never knew how the parents would be. Never knew, right? So you don't know if you're waking up to the compassionate parent. You don't know if you're waking up to the indifferent parent who's busy with work. You don't know if you're waking up to the angry, judgmental, condemning parent. And every day, you don't know how to see your needs in light of that parent. But listen, Jesus has one attire. It's priest.
Hallelujah.
He's always for you, not because of you.
Amen.
If you think about Jesus' office, think about the difference between Rick's closet and a woman's closet when it comes to your workday. A woman gets up and she puts on a million different outfits. A cop gets on and puts on one outfit all the time. Jesus puts on one outfit all the time. And it's, I'm for you, I live in your place, and I'm about you, and I will take care of you, not because of you. Remember, he's not just there as a priority, but there as an affectionate, compassionate priest. That's his job.
Amen.
the priestly robes went all the way down to his feet, which means that everything about Jesus is priestly. It wasn't a priestly tank top. It was a priestly robe. But beloved, he's just not there as priority and gracious, and he's also there affectionately. Notice it says the gold lampstands, not the IKEA wood lampstands. He sees the church as precious gold. And notice what else? All of his attire is wrapped together where? At the center of his chest, which points to the affections of the priest for his people. Now, in the Reformed world, we talk a lot about the glory of God and the supremacy of God and the honor of God and the awesomeness of God and the sovereignty of God, and we should. But we think that talking about the love of God, that's for those shallow theologians. But beloved, it's not enough for Jesus to be powerful if he's not affectionately loving towards you. I've met tons of people in my life who have power but have no affection for me. Jesus has power, and yet everything that he does from his power comes from affection for his bride, precious gold property bride. Amen. When you think of how Jesus is here, do not think of guys with their tools. They're valuable, but I throw them on the floor. Do not think kids with their toys. They're valuable, but they chuck them in the air. Think a mom with a newborn baby. She will not put that baby down because it's such a high value. That's the way Jesus loves you. Amen. How is he with you, church? Priority, graciously, and affectionately. But the next thing, as he says how he's there, he then begins to say who he is with these pictures of his head. So here's a third point if you're tracking with me. Who he is, not who are you. Who he is, not who are you. Verse 14 says, his head and his hair were white like wool, white as snow. His eyes were like a fiery flame. His feet were like fine bronze as is fire in a furnace, and his voice is like the sound of cascading waters. He has 7 stars in his right hand, and a sharp double-edged sword came from his mouth, and his face was shining like the sun at midday. So here's the first thing. You know who I am? I want you to think about, number one, I'm other. So when it says that Jesus' head is really white, like wool, does not mean that he's really old, like grandpa. It means that he is holy. He is distinct. There is no one that is like him. God is not like you. God is saying to the church to comfort them. I'm not like you at all. Okay? That's good news.
Yes.
We know who God is first to understand how to process instability. And who God is holy. Let me give you a picture that may be helpful. When 2 kids are in a problematic situation, all of a sudden they realize that you're too much like me to fix this. Right? I need someone that's less like us, twice as high, twice as smart to fix the problem, right? So we understand in a small way that there needs to be otherness, highness, and exaltedness for us to be stable. And I think one of the reasons why the church is so insecure, is because we've made God to be too much like us, and so we have to invent some kind of humanistic ways to feel comfortable because God is too much like us. But what he's saying to you today, Pioneers and Reconcile, is that you can have confidence, you can be sure, because God is not like you at all. And because he's so far exalted, so supremely distinct, you can trust him. Yeah. He is other. Listen, your holiness and your blamelessness, if you had a picture of it, you have a whole lot of sin dandruff in it. Jesus' blamelessness and holiness and otherness is totally white. Totally white. And what's great about this is oftentimes we're like, God, if I was you, I would do it this way. And I think you should. He's like, God, I'm not like you. So stop thinking I not just other, I am also knower. His eyes were like a flame of fire, which speaks about his penetrating, never able to escape omniscience that goes deep down into any situation. It is the power of God knowing all things perfectly, not partially. Let me give you a picture of this. Me and my kids, we go to the car, and they want to know everything about the journey. I want to know this, I want to know that, I want to know this, I want to know that, I want to know this, I want to know that. So listen. You just need to know that I know. That's all you need to know.
That's right.
You know that I know, that's what you got to know. And I think oftentimes, as a church, when stuff gets difficult, we want to know everything about God, and we want to know everything. Like Rick said, we want to know things as God knows it. We want to know everything about the situation. We want to know everything about this, know everything about that, know everything about self. And God is like, church, listen, I know you perfectly. I know you perfectly, so just rest and trust that I know you perfectly in the midst of all your imperfect knowledge of me. That's all you got to know. Sit back in the car, be quiet. I know where you're going. I know everything. So just rest and I know you. And I see you.
Amen.
God is nowhere. I feel like God tells me that all the time when I'm trying to figure everything out. God, what about this? Can I see this? Can you understand about this? God's like, I know everything. That's all you need to know. God is other. God is knower. But he's also sanctifier. It says that his feet are like burnished bronze. That speaks about how he is our sanctifier, who sanctifies us by fire. Now, I think something is very helpful about this. A lot of times when we talk about sanctification, we talk more about the person being sanctified than the one who sanctifies us. This picture makes it very clear that the focus is the one who sanctifies you by himself, because of himself, not so much because of you and yourself. And notice, he's sanctifying us not by still, small, nice, advising voice. He is sanctifying us by fire. By burning. Listen, tell you something. If you want to summarize the book of Revelation, a church on fire. And it's very easy. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing in Babylon, the great harlots? What do you think about Rome? We're getting burned and put to light up the streets of Rome. What are you doing about all these false teachers? What are you doing about this stuff? And God is like, I am your dad who is perfecting you in the fire. We don't get sanctified by nice, convenient, cozy whispers. We get perfected by Jesus purging us by the power of his cross and resurrection applied to us. If you want a picture that's very helpful, it's a picture of rubbing alcohol with your kids. All y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. Start putting, there's this wound that's potentially infectious, and you start like, ow, it hurts, it burns. What are you doing? I love you, and I am more about your health than your comfort and convenience. Can we relate to that? God, this hurts. If there's anything I've learned in the last 5 years as a pastor, God, this hurts. It burns. Stop it, please. God says, I am your sanctifier who's doing all of these painful things to make you like me. My son, rest. Rest. He is sanctifying us by fire. And you know what? That makes the alcohol a lot more tolerable. I don't know about you. Yeah. Don't you feel sometimes like, this seems pointless? Why is life have to hurt so much? Because Jesus is your sanctifier. Through the fire. I have two more things to say about who Jesus is. He is also speaker. It says he has cascading waterfalls. It's pretty scary if you think about it. And a sword coming out of his mouth. This is God's way of saying that, listen, Everything that I do by my covenantal, sovereign, kingly speech. Everything that I do by my sovereign, covenantal, kingly speech. Basically, Jesus' word has the first and final say. Okay, it's like a wife. Hold on. Like a wife who's out with the kids at a get together, and you, husband, you was like hiding the whole time, and she gets to that point where she says, "We're leaving." That's the last word. There's no arguments. Okay, that's it. There's no conversation. Jesus is the one whose speech gets the final say. Now, let me give you a story about us. I decided to move out of the Baptist world into the Presbyterian world, and things got very messy. The churches that we were connected to got very upset, and I think within 8 months, close to 30 people left our church. Now, our church has never been more than 60 people, so think about that. I was talking to Nathan one time, he's like, "Yeah, we had 30 people leave." I'm like, "I'm talking about half our church, man. Like, I get it, okay?" And people in Miami were saying, "That church is done. They're finished. Everyone has something to say. The devil had something to say. I even I had something to say." I was talking to my friend, our church, Tanya, and I was like, "I'm done. I'm finished." And you know what she said to me? "You don't get to make that decision. It's not up to you.
Amen.
It's up to what God says." And you know what? If you leave, he's going to get you with a wheel and spit you back up here, because he gets the final say. Beloved, it doesn't matter what you say, what she says, what Miami says, what church folks says, what I say. What God has said about you is where you rest and where you live and where you stand.
Amen.
And what has God said about Pinelands? "I will build my church." And pastoral transitions will make that stop. Is that what he says? Nothing, not even death, not even the forces of darkness, nothing can undo what I say about you. And what I say about you is that what I say matters first, final, period, point blank. There's no other part of the conversation. God is the speaker, and we are the spoken to. By the way, God's speech is like cascading waterfalls. That means it picks up barriers, it crushes things, it creates life. It is powerful. It's not nice, cute advice that God would like you to do something with. It is waterfalls and swords and power. But here's one more thing I'll say about knowing God. Obviously, I could have made knowing God the one sermon, but I made it a part of another sermon. God is other, God is knower, God is sanctifier, God is speaker, and lastly, God is ruler. Where are the stars?
Amen. Hallelujah.
In his closed right hand fist. And now, there's a lot of people that talk about what the stars mean. It's really simple. Stars point to the ministry of the gospel in the church. So that includes leaders, that includes members. Basically, the ministry of the church is in his hand. He's an angel, he's a pastor. It's the ministry of the church that is in his hand. And I think oftentimes, whenever things get confusing and difficult, everyone tries to strategize as to what they're going to do. How are we going to figure this out? How are we going to control the past by controlling the future? Correct? And here's a picture I think is helpful. Any of you guys go to Trader Joe's? We don't have that deep south because I guess we don't got enough money to shop at Trader Joe's. It's got to go to the falls, you know. No Chick-fil-A either. All right, where's that going? All right, so in Chick-fil-A they have these little kids shopping carts.
Yes.
There it goes. They have these little kids shopping carts, and they have these things attached to them. And at an age when he was like 3 years old, he was pushing the cart all over the place. And when he was about to crash, he would turn around and he'd see my hand that was there the whole time. He said, listen, you've been pushing this car, but guess what? I've been directing you the entire time. This is what Jesus is saying here to us. Beloved, Jesus would not like you to put him in charge. He is.
Amen.
He would not like you to direct him. He's directing you. He's not saying, would you close the fingers of my fist so I can rule you? He is ruling you, and he's been ruling you. He is so much better at leading us than we are at following him. So know that I am the ruler now. The key to the church to realize how to be subject to Jesus is to realize that it's already subjected to Jesus. He's not asking for your invitation to run his church. He's running his church. And you know what? He knows what he's doing. He said, well, wait a second. If I was him, he's Father. So we need to know things about God. And here's the last point I had. I actually made it to the last point. It's 30 minutes.
Not normal.
It is normal, right? What he did is the last point. In our instability, we focus on what he did, not what is done. What he did, not what is done. Look, it says, I saw him. I fell at his feet like a dead man. This is why I don't believe all the Lucifer saw Jesus. Did you fall at your feet like a dead man? Then I don't know who you saw, because it wasn't Jesus. Whenever someone sees an exalted Jesus in the Bible, they die, or they think they're going to die. Okay, side note. All right. When I saw him, I fell at his feet like a dead man, and he laid his right hand on me and said, don't be afraid. I am the first and the last. I am the living one. I was dead, but look, I am alive forever and ever, and I hold the keys of death and Hades. Therefore, write what you have seen, what is, and will take place after this. So let me explain to you. Alpha and Omega points to the fact that it speaks to Jesus' person. So he is the eternal one who's always existed, who always exists in the present, and who always will exist. So when Jesus says, listen, the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, died and was raised, he wants you to know something about who he is to let you understand what he did. So because he stretches back to eternity, that means that what he did redefines all your past, because he's the one who exists from all eternity. Because he's the ever-living one, what he did defines, conquers, owns, claims your presence, because he's a living one. Because he is the one who stretches beyond eternity and goes into eternity forever and ever, what he did in the cross and resurrection has now redefined your entire future. He claims and owns your future because he's the Alpha and the Omega who died and was raised.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Now let me give you a picture that might be helpful. It's getting married. This is how it will happen when a woman comes in your life. Every woman you know in your past no longer exists. Come on, you can laugh, right? Why? Because I'm here. Everyone in your past no longer exists. Oh, and by the way, everyone in your present doesn't exist to you either. Oh, and by the way, because I'm here, everyone you will ever meet does not exist in an intimate sense. Basically, I define your past, I define your present, and I define your future because I'm here.
Hallelujah.
This is so important because I think oftentimes we as a church, we think what's most important is what happened to us in the past, what we did in the past, what we didn't do in the past. But what Jesus said, listen, I am the Alpha and the Omega who died and was raised, which means that my past dominates your past.
Oh, hallelujah.
What happened to me rewrites, dominates, claims, owns, rules your past because the Alpha and the Omega, the eternal one from past, died. But guess what? We then shift to becoming very obsessed with what we will do or won't do, what we did and what happened to us in the present. And he says, I'm sorry, I own that too.
Hallelujah.
Guess what? Because I am the ever-present one who's eternal, my finished work, my cross and resurrection defines this moment, this present more than anything. I own the present too. But then we think, what are we going to do? What's going to happen to us? What choice are we going to make? And say, well, I'm sorry, I own that too. The Alpha and the Omega, the eternal one who exists forever. My cross and resurrection own, claim, define, rule eternity and your future. And I think something that often happens in the church is that we get really stuck on some picture of the glory days. Remember when this happened? Remember when this happened? And let me speak to our denomination. Our denomination is stuck in the glory days of 30 years ago. Can I meddle a little bit?
Amen.
Oh, in Miami, man, when we were the biggest presbytery, and can we recapture those days? And John is saying there is a glory day to recapture, but it's Golgotha. It's 33 AD. That's the glory day the church has to recapture. Not this year, that year, a decade ago, 20 years ago, but 33 years of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection is what drives today. Look, it does not matter what happened in America 100 years ago, what happened in Miami 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 30 years ago. The church is dominated and controlled by what happened 2,000 years ago in the eternal one, dying, being crucified, buried, and being raised forever. That's what we have to consider, what he did for us. Not what happened to us, not what we did or didn't do, but what he did, claiming, owning, dominating the day. We must consider what he did more than what is done. So let me just do some application. All right, I made it. I haven't preached an hour sermon yet. Beloved, if who you are in, more than where you are, is most defining, then we should be those who live by our gospel passport, not the current place that we're at. So have any of you guys ever been to another country and the living situations are very unpleasant and there's a lot of unfair things that happen to you? Why do you feel okay about that as an American? Because you got an American passport, you belong somewhere else, right? This, where I'm at right now, that's not what really matters. And so what Jesus is saying to you, church, is yes, things on the ground are like this, but guess what? You got a Jesus gospel passport that trumps what's going on the ground right now. And you know his passport is stamped with his achievements and benefits and awesomeness. Every page of your passport. And so as we look on the ground, as we are in this foreign land where there's so much tumultuous pain and discomfort and difficulty, God is saying, open up your eternal heavenly passport and flip those pages and meditate, because that's where you belong, that's where you are, that's where you are. Amen. We need to stay in those realities, who we are in, more than what is going on. Secondly, if where he is, not what you think matters, then we should not be confident. I said this in total respect. And we should not be confident based upon who's here and who's not here. If one thing I've learned as a pastor is, listen, my best friends will hate me next year. And some of my best members will move to Georgia and South Carolina and North Carolina. I have lost so many people in the biblical South. It's like, let me guess, Carolina? But beloved, Jesus never leaves. He's the casting stones up in your house, and he never leaves. And if he's there, we're good. There's only one non-losable member of the church. It's not you, it's not me, it's him. And guess what? He shows up, and he doesn't leave. He shows up, and doesn't leave. And that's okay. If how he is there, not how we are here, if how he is there, not how we are here, most define us, then we should be mostly moving forward in light of how he feels about us, not how we feel about each other. Let me give you a picture that may be helpful. When a kid goes to a sports game, goes to play sports, there's only one thing that really matters. It's not how his coach feels about him. It's not how the other players feel about him. It's not how the other people watching the game feel about him. It's about those two parents, hopefully, that are there. You're my boy. I love you. You can do nothing in this game to change how I feel about you. Go and whoop them. what does Miami people think about us? What do these members think about us, or those members, and what does it? But beloved, all we need is to hear in this letter that Jesus is saying, I'm for you, I love you, go at it, you can't lose. You can't lose. You have nothing to prove, nothing to gain. Why? Because the ever living was died and it was raised. Consider how I feel about you, not how you feel so much about each other. There's three people that matter. It's Father, Son, and Spirit, and how they feel about us as one. Two more things. If who He is and where He is should drive us, we should talk to ourselves about who God is more than we talk about what we think or feel. So we should think more about who He is and less about what we think, feel, prefer, like, whatever. Let me give you a very practical picture of this. A lot of times people come to our church and they're like, people don't want to hear this. This makes people uncomfortable. This kind of like, steps on their toes. Aldo, I had a PCA pastor tell me this. Aldo, you think you can preach theology and actually go to church? Come on, Aldo. Well, if I were considering that conversation, then I would probably be affected by that. But when I think, who's God? God is holy. Yeah. If God is like no one else, then I should be preaching something that's like nothing else in the city. Yeah. So because God is holy, and God is sanctified, and God is other and lofty, I will preach a lot of who He is, not the chatter of how I feel, what I would prefer. People tell me, Aldo, like, you have all these degrees. Why don't you talk like a smart person in the pulpit? Because God wants to speak to people, not impress them with me. Amen. God is this, therefore we do this. Not the on the ground chatter, yada, yada, yada. Here's the last application point that I'll give. If what He did, not what is done to us, is most defining, then we should be acting always in light of what happened 2,000 years ago, not what happened to you today, yesterday, or tomorrow. Let me give you another picture. I remember, when all the things happened, when we had that transition, and you lose friends, you lose family, you lose money, you lose respect. I basically said, look, based upon what happened to me and what they did or what we did together to each other, I'm basically going to make a decision based upon all the things that happened. And Jesus is like, are you missing something here? What did I do? Didn't I live a righteous life under law for you, 2,000 years ago? You remember that? Didn't I take all of your law-breaking rebellion on my body and suffer the eternal fierce judgment of God for your sins? Didn't I do that? Wasn't I raised from the grave, triumphant over sin, death, hell, and the devil, where I give you my famous righteous status? You're going to live based upon what happened to you yesterday or what they did to you? What did I do to you in the cross? And that was so refreshing to me. I was like, yes, I'm going to live. I'm going to pastor and preach because Jesus did this 2,000 years ago, no matter what happens on the ground. I'm going to love my wife, raise my kids to the glory of God because Jesus did this to me. That's enough. And so as the church looks at chaos and change and confusion and doubt, He says, I did this to you and for you. I crucified you with me. I buried you with me. I raised you with me. Live from that. We pray. Father, I thank you so much that as things go on, as things happen, when you start looking in the mirror, when you start posting spiritual selfies on Facebook, you say, look at me. Look at where I'm at. Look at who I am. Stop looking at the mirror. Stop the spiritual selfies. Stop being driven by the narrative on the ground. Stop being defined by the reality on the ground. Things are not as they seem. I'm in heaven. All authority, power, glory, honor, because of what I did. I want you to live from that. So God, I pray and I plead that you would regularly recast this vision of Jesus. As we look on the ground at so many things that just don't seem to give us the ability to stand. Amen.